Good afternoon, Kilmeny.
Good afternoon, John. Relatively quiet outside the Supreme Court here. Earlier this morning, there were dozens of protesters and a lot of media in anticipation of that Mississippi abortion case. But as you mentioned, we did not get three of those major rulings that we were expected to hear from. So that will have to wait a little bit longer as the police remain and the barricades remain in anticipation of that decision. Now, on Tuesday, as you mentioned, House Democrats passing that legislation to provide security for Supreme Court justices, for their families, rather. That breaking down, as you mentioned, 396 in favor, 27 Democrats voting no. The Democrats who did not vote with the majority had wanted to tie that legislation to an amendment that would protect abortion providers. That obviously didn't fly there. House Democrats, we know, were in no hurry to pass this legislation after it unanimously passed in the Senate for weeks. And I put that question last week to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi about why the delay. Take a listen. Were protected when there was an attempt on Justice Kavanaugh's life. You said the justices are protected, but there was an attempt on Justice Kavanaugh's life.
It's protected. The justices are protected. This issue is not about the justices. It's about staff and the rest. The justices are protected. You saw the Attorney General even double down on that.
But this is about security for the justices. An armed man showed up near Justice Kavanaugh's house.
There will be a bill, but nobody is in danger over the weekend because of our not having a bill.
Well, Democrats say that that legislation was delayed because they wanted the bill to extend to judicial clerks and staff. Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell making it very clear that they weren't going to make any changes there and urging House Democrats to pass it immediately. It has now gone to President Biden's desk for signature. The White House has not issued any guidance on when the president will be signing it, but we also still have no condemnation from the president when it comes to the incident happening right outside Justice Kavanaugh's home.
Kilmeny Dukar for us live on Capitol Hill, right across the street from the Supreme Court. Kilmeny, thanks so much. All right, within the hour, we will get an announcement from the Fed. They're going to announce the biggest interest rate hike we've seen in almost 3 decades. The decision the central bank hopes will curb inflation. National correspondent Logan Raddick is live outside the Federal Reserve Bank with more on what we can expect today. Hey, Logan.
Well, John, the question is how much will the Fed raise its interest rates in order to curb inflation, which is currently at a 40-year high, 8.6% year over year. And right now, the markets are betting on the Fed raising interest rates by 0.75 of 1%. So that would be 0.75%. That would be the highest rate hike since 1994 and the third rate increase this year alone. Now, another rate increase would mean Americans would pay more for things like credit cards, student loans, new car loans, and mortgages. Tuesday's market swings, though, they ended down due to speculation of these potential rate hikes that we're going to see today. And the S&P now officially a bear market, down 21% since January. So the initial speculation was that the Fed was going to raise interest rates by 0.5%. That has bumped up to 0.75%. So that's what we're expecting to see when they come out with their announcement at 2 o'clock. John.
All right, Logan, we'll be standing by waiting for that. Of course, folks can tune in to Newsmax here and get another update from Logan and the team in American Agenda coming up at 2 p.m. Thanks, Logan. All right, let's welcome in now former Pennsylvania Senator and Newsmax senior political analyst Rick Santorum. He's also a senior advisor for the Convention of States. Great to see you, Senator.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
All right, let's go back to the issue of Supreme Court security. We were going to talk to you about these rulings today, which we didn't get. But I think this is very important to highlight how the votes broke down. 27 Democrats voted against this Supreme Court security bill, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who said, quote, "It's just preposterous how quickly this body will move to protect itself and how slowly we move to protect children and people in grocery stores," talking about the mass shootings. Do you see any equivalency there between protecting Supreme Court justices and gun control?
None whatsoever, and I don't think the American public does either. The reality is that we have a responsibility to provide security for people who are in who are at the highest levels of our government, who are under threat because of a lot of the rhetoric that we're seeing from people like AOC. And so this is a core responsibility of government. Core responsibility of government is to make sure that the people are protected, and particularly those who are in significant positions. It is not a core responsibility of government to take people's Second Amendment rights away. In fact, it's the antithesis of that. And so this is the thing that the Democrats just tend to conflate all the time, which is, we have a responsibility of certain core things that Washington should do, and they want to take those responsibility and expand it to everything that they want and run over the Constitution in the process. So no, there's no equivalency.
And you don't hear any concern from people like AOC after the attacks we've seen at these pro-life pregnancy centers and churches in the wake of this leak from the SCOTUS decision on Dobbs. The Catholic Church bishops warning that something has to be done to stop this violence. Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York and Archbishop William Lori of Baltimore writing, quote, "In light of this, we urge our elected officials to take a strong stand against this violence and our law enforcement authorities to increase their vigilance in protecting those who are in increased danger." And again, we don't even have Merrick Garland enforcing the law that's on the books that protects the Supreme Court justices from having people threaten them outside of their own homes.
Well, to the abortion situation. I mean, here, look, I'll try to be consistent here for someone who's in politics, which is I don't think the federal government should be involved in protecting abortion clinics, but the local people who are local governments, states and local governments, depending on the area, should be. They have the responsibility when there is an imminent threat to these types of facilities to provide security. And not the federal government. And now Merrick Garland does have responsibility, as you mentioned, to enforce federal law when it comes to protecting justices. So, we sometimes get lost that, every time there's a problem, we want the federal government to step in and do something. And that's really the wrong thing to do. We should look first to our local communities to enforce the local laws. Where you have a business that's being threatened, you provide extra security. You make sure that the police go by more often. Things as simple as that can really begin to solve these problems instead of federalizing every issue that comes around.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Senator Marco Rubio tweeting about this today. He says, quote, "If 23 Planned Parenthood centers were attacked and someone tried to kill a liberal justice, this is all the media and Democrats would be talking about. But since it was 23 pro-life organizations and a conservative justice, the media and most Democratic politicians don't care." And I agree with you. I mean, there's not a federal solution for all of our problems here, but the lack of concern based on politics, I think, is really jarring for a lot of Americans.
Well, I would say that it's jarring, but I think Americans are getting used to it more and more. They realize that the mainstream media is not what it used to be. It's not, well, I'm not even sure it used to be, but it's gotten even worse than what it used to be. And that is that they have a political agenda. They are, you think about it. You go back to the times of the early part of our founding. And news organizations were, in fact, political. There wasn't really journalism. There was, if you look back at I look at, for example, papers in my state. You had the Pottsville Republican. You had the Johnstown Tribune Democrat. I mean, you had papers that were specifically taking one point of view, and you understood when you read those papers that's what it was. That's what it was. We sort of got away from that a little bit in the early part of the last century. But I think toward the last part of this century, we've changed. And now news organizations, have a bent. And that's okay as long as you're honest enough to admit it. And they don't. They seem to continue to want to say that they're somehow journalists and they're just reporting the facts when in fact they're not. And I think the American public has figured that out, and they've sort of exposed themselves for the partisans that they are.
We could go back and forth. I somewhat disagree with you. Newspapers are one thing, but broadcast television is another thing. They use the public's airwaves to broadcast their message. We do need those outlets to be unbiased, but that's not happening.
It's not happening. It hasn't happened for a while.
Yeah.
And again, they had the pretense of it for a long time, but I think the American public has finally figured it out. And I think Donald Trump was a big part of exposing, the fake narratives that were being put forward.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are changing the channel, tuning in to us. Great to see you,
Senator. Newsmax.
Great to see you, Senator.
Good.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.